We have 10 days left of meteorological fall. So let's take you back those 90 days and see how fall took shape. And you can actually see for the most of the country, especially the center part of the US, they overall ended on the milder side. What you would typically see is just those areas across in our western regions, as well as into portions of the southeast, they ended up overall on the average side. But for those last 10 days going forward, we've got significant changes on the table, and it's going to be complements of these two domes of high pressure. One is going to be locked over Greenland, and the other one is going to be locked over Alaska. Whenever you see this type of setup, that predominantly pulls the colder anomalies into the lower 48, but not only does that, but it locks it in for an extended period of time. So this is the overall anomalies for those last 10 days of meteorological fall. That would put you through that December the 1st time frame. Much of the lower 48 is overall below average, and that's the GFS ensembles, and as well as the European ensembles is also on board. So this pulls that colder anomalies for a good part of the lower 48, and even the Canadian ensembles is also implying the same thing. This would be a little bit colder than what the GFS and the overall European have in store. But nonetheless, all three ensemble global guidances put the colder temperatures into the lower 48 for the next 10 days. So we're going to have an extended cold spell on the table. So if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel, and I would love to reach 225,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and you can help me get there by subscribing to the channel and following all my daily content. So going forward, let's take a look at what's happening so far as the snowfall. So this is your season to date snowfall. This is what's actually falling on the ground. And this is from, October the 1st through today. And yeah, for those areas across the Intermountain West, pretty good snowpack so far came across the Rockies. It's only areas across upper portions of the Great Lakes and as well as into New England. But overall, for the next 10 days, with those colder temperatures going to be in place, that promises to bring some of these snow levels further south into places they really haven't seen any snow so far. So going forward, let's take a look at the El Nino and kind of give you an update on what's happening there. And it's pretty pronounced, folks. This is your El Nino. We've been talking about this for a long time. From west to east, this is the pronounced huge surge of well above average temperature anomalies out there into the equatorial Pacific. So yes, this is every bit of an El Nino going forward. And actually what's interesting going forward, here's the latest update. It was predominantly on the moderate side, but when last week, because of this overall spike just within the last week time frame, that's when the Climate Prediction Center highlighted, say, hey, now we're in a strong El Nino. It basically took it above that 1.5 threshold there. Now we're almost about a 1.7 on the ENSO. So yes, a strong El Nino is definitely in store for your winter ahead. And let's look at the setup going forward as far as the jet stream over the next 10 days. So here's the predominant storm track. We're going to have a low pressure center that's going to be highlighted over portions of Idaho into Montana. That system is going to be diving southbound through the Rockies into the Texas Panhandle, through Oklahoma, and come up the eastern seaboard. And that's going to be predominantly the storm track with this low pressure center for your week ahead, falling into that colder air. And as it does that, it's actually going to be bringing that snow line further south into places they really haven't seen that much snow. So yes, we're going to have more renewed snows in the Intermountain West, through the Rockies into Denver. But not only Denver, now we're going to be including those areas into portions of South Dakota, as well as into Nebraska here, into Kansas. even further south into New Mexico between now and the next 10 days is going to be getting some pretty healthy, decent snows. Yes, even the Texas Panhandle will likely be getting a couple of inches of snow from this particular storm track. And even places into Oklahoma, it will also likely going to be seeing some snow going to be on the table. Then as this traverses up the East Coast, and as the colder push comes in from Canada, we're going to have these areas, especially into New England, upstate New York, those places in Vermont, New Hampshire, but especially into Maine, would likely get crushed with heavier snows, maybe even double-digit snow totals, over the next 10 days and beyond that. So let's take a look at the setup possibly for that December timeframe as we go into the first day of meteorological winter now. So that's only about 10 days away. That's when they start keeping track of the winter stats, and that first week of meteorological winter, puts a predominant storm track on the most favored storm track I think would be likely for your winter ahead. If you followed my winter forecast, we talked about this most pronounced storm track for your winter. It likely will be coming up, kind of taking this shape. And that's exactly what the jet stream implies that's going to be happening that first week of December. And as it does in that first week of December, that will likely keep the colder anomalies again further south. So not only do you stay below average for the last 10 days of November, it's likely you stay below average for that first week of December, especially across these areas into the desert Southwest, especially those areas across Texas into Oklahoma, through the Southeast, predominantly portions of Florida, and then up into the mid-Atlantic, portions of the Ohio Valley, and into the Northeast. It's really these just areas across our northern fringes where that ridge of high pressure has been highlighted over Alaska and Greenland, tries to pull the warmer anomalies further south into that first week of December. So here's your precipitation with that storm track for the next 15 days. So we're going to have these systems come in from the Pacific Northwest, bring some elevated rains for them. We're going to be seeing some light to moderate rains draped across a good part of portions of the West Coast, going into the Four Corners regions through the desert Southwest. But the most pronounced precipitation over the next 15 days is likely going to be where the most favored storm track would likely take place, into the deep south as well as into the southeast, and heading up into the East Coast and up here into good part of New England. And then most of this activity, of course, along the coastal regions will be all rain, and as you pull into the interior sections, like I showed you up towards into the mountain ranges, that will be in the form of all snow. So going forward, what's interesting, let me take a look at some of the teleconnections for the rest of November and through December. So this is your EPO. This is your Eastern Pacific Oscillation. I know this is a little bit hard to read, but let me just kind of give you a breakdown. Here's overall November the 20th right there, and this would be your New Year's Day. All right. So whenever you're looking at this, for layman's terms, whenever you see something negative, which it predominantly is for the next 10 days, that's why much of the lower 48 is predominantly going to be on the colder side. Then it actually even tries to take another dip through that December the 6th timeframe. That's why much of the South predominantly stays on the overall cooler anomaly side. But look what happens into that possibly that second and third week of December. The EPO goes positive. So that would likely put the warmer anomalies back over the central and eastern 2/3 of the US, and likely put the cooler anomalies back towards the western regions, into the western states, the Pacific Northwest, as well as into the desert Southwest. But look what happens for Christmas week, as well as into likely into your New Year's. It takes a noticeable dive in the teleconnections. That would put some very cold air for Christmas week all the way back into your central and eastern 2/3 of the US and extend it through that first week of January through your New Year's. So that's pretty interesting going forward, and we'll be watching that and what that would actually look like. So here's what it looks like on your temperature anomalies, right? So when that EPO goes positive that second week, this is your December the 7th through that December the 14th time frame, that ridge likely will come back and pull back into the central and eastern 2/3 of the US and create more of a milder conditions after you've seen below average for the next 10 to 15 days, and it put the cooler anomalies back over to our western regions and into the desert Southwest. And then going into that third week of December would likely, again, December that 14th through that December 21st time frame, an even more pronounced milder period for these areas across the central and eastern 2/3 of the US, while it continues to remain on the colder side across the Pacific Northwest, much of the West Coast, and into the desert Southwest. Yes, and what that would look like as far as potential snows, and as it pulls back, that would really start to elevate these snows back again into the Intermountain West regions, heavier snows into the mountains of California, then up here into portions of Washington and Oregon, and back through Idaho into Montana, but especially back into the Rockies again through Nevada into Utah. And that would pull farther south into Flagstaff there, back into the Santa Fe region, into the Rockies, and more snow for portions of Denver, and then as well as into New England. And then going forward, this would be your Christmas week. And then looking at some of the height anomalies, we start to see some lower heights underneath. That implies the colder air is starting to come back as we're starting to get ridging again back over the top, exactly what that EPO going decisively negative would be. So likely the colder air would likely start to come back for your Christmas week, and then really start to get pronounced as you head towards the end of December, going into that first through the New Year's Eve, New Year's Day timeframe to that first week of January, would put definitely a good part of the central and eastern 2/3 of the US under that back below average anomalies. And that would bring more significant snows. This would be likely for your Christmas week on the latest, some of the ensemble member guidance from that December 20th through that December 30th timeframe. Yeah, you got heavier snows back into South Dakota, through Nebraska here, through the Rockies, but the snows would extend to far south now as Oklahoma, through Missouri, through portions of Illinois, back into Indiana, Ohio, even portions of Kentucky, back into West Virginia, and then up here into Pennsylvania, and then all of the Northeast would likely get some snow for your Christmas week time frame. And then heading into that Christmas time through that New Year's Eve, New Year's Day time frame through that first week of January, yeah, that would put even more snow back into these pictures, as it implies that, hey, we got colder anomalies coming back. The storm track would likely shift further south as the jet stream would look a little bit lower by then. And then, yes, you would have, a lot of you guys would probably be pretty happy campers with possibly a white Christmas on the table across these regions as we get through that Christmas week time frame. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update where I protect you before and after the storm.